Well, good evening, everyone. It's a live edition, really live. This is not pre-recorded, of the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show here on Monday evening, December 8th, 2025. I'm your host, Chris Baker. You can find me on X at Sabres Prospects. Here, as always, on location with the Sabres in Calgary, Alberta tonight. That is your Sabres beat writer for The Athletic. It's Matthew Fairburn. You can find Matthew Fairburn at his name on every social media platform in existence. Get over and subscribe to The Athletic. It's the holiday season. I've been saying it here for the past few episodes now, but it is a great gift to give the sports lover in your life. Is that Athletic subscription? Fits nicely in a stocking. Comprehensive coverage of all your favorite sports, including the NHL, including the Buffalo Sabres. And Matthew's been a busy beaver this season, writing some scintillating stories on this iteration of the Buffalo Sabres. If you're watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the Sabres Prospects YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you know when a new episode drops. Or like tonight, when we do a pop-up event and the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show goes live. You can find the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and you could please leave a 5-star review. It is nighttime. I like the morning shows. I'm not excited to be sitting here at 6 o'clock Eastern at this desk. I'm just going to say it right now, but we're doing it for the fans who have been pissing and moaning all season long in the comments and at Twitter about the lack of live shows. Matthew Fairburn, I'm going to give you a chance to talk in a minute, but let me just kind of tee things up for you. Unless you have a comment on the people pissing and moaning.
Chris is feeling spicy. I think, I could be wrong, but I think if we get a whole bunch of likes on the video, that might improve Chris's mood a little bit. Might cheer him up. Maybe even get more live shows. Who knows?
Hit that like button. I've been asking for 20% of viewers to like, and you guys have been coming through, except for the last video, because I didn't grovel at the top like I'm doing right now. So do me a favor, hit the like button. It's greatly appreciated. A Christmas present, an early birthday present for me.
Very close
20% likes.
Birthday here.
20% likes. That's right. That's right. All right. So Matthew, the reason that you are in Calgary is that the Sabres have a game tonight against the Flames, a team that's been playing them pretty tight. Maybe a little revenge game for the Sabres tonight. So losers of 2 straight are the Buffalo Sabres. They come in tonight with an 11-13-4 record. Goal differential has dipped to -12. Not good. Not good, Matthew Fairburn. But here we are now. Sabres are 7 points back of third place in the Atlantic, 8 points back from the final wild card spot, but also 8 points back from first place in the Atlantic. Now we'll see a little bit of a different look from the Buffalo Sabres tonight. They made some roster moves and there's some new line configuration. So let's just kind of ease our way into tonight's podcast by talking about how the Sabres are going to line up tonight in Calgary. And by the way, before I forget, who's starting in net tonight? Soundbite from R.I.P. Henry Yoki. How are you? All right, Matthew Fairburn, let's talk about the line combinations because they're going to look a little different tonight when the puck drops.
Yeah, Noah Ostlund went down to Rochester yesterday afternoon so that the Sabres could get their 7th defenseman, their extra pair of underwear, which I let you know before I left that I did indeed have extra underwear on this trip, unlike the Sabres on the first part of their swing. They got their 7th defenseman. Zach Metz is up. So Jordan Greenway, Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck is your de facto top line. You've got Josh Norris between Zach Benson and Josh Doan, Ryan McLeod between Jason Zucker and Jack Quinn, and then Peyton Krebs between Beck Malenstein and Tyson Kozak, who is now healthy enough to be playing pretty close to 100%, Lindy Ruff said. So that leaves Josh Dunn as your extra. And
happy 27th birthday, Josh Dunn.
That's right. Yeah, he is the birthday boy today. Maybe that's why he didn't go on waivers yesterday. He couldn't put him on waivers on his birthday.
And he's gonna be eating cake up in the press box. I got to serve him cake. But...
So it would be nice if there's cake up there. It's a treacherous press box up there in Calgary, by my memory from the last time I was here. But defense pairs are the same, which is interesting because after the game on Friday night, there was, Lindy Ruff was saying he was going to shake things up, and he did in the forward group, but kept the defense pairs the same. And, came to the defense of Byram and Timmins today a little bit when I asked about them, and, saying it's kind of a 5-man effort, and that the goals against, on ice goals against numbers aren't necessarily entirely reflective of how that pair has played. So all of the changes coming up front, and I would say the Osland demotion is it's a sore spot certainly for fans, because he's been an exciting player and he's played well. Lindy Ruff had nothing but good things to say about him today, and said, his message to him was that he played really well and he thinks he's been one of their best playmakers, and played well defensively. No real negatives other than the fact that he's going down, and I think it was just a numbers game. He was the easy one to send down. He doesn't need waivers. Everybody else on the roster does, and they've still got 3 goalies here in Calgary. So they haven't made a decision there. And so that's why you end up with Osland, and before him, Roseanne back in Rochester.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Osland because, you and I have talked about it, I think, for the past 2 episodes now. It seemed like it was the safe move right now because of the waiver situation. They can kind of get a little extra time here to make a decision on the 3 goalies and all of this. But it's also splitting up Thompson and Norris, which really facilitates the safety of the move also with sending Osland down. Was it a surprise? I mean, you were there. Yeah, I saw your tweet. Kevin Adams sounded like he came down to the bench and had a conversation with Noah. And I mean, you and I talked about it. We thought that was going to be the move that was made, but was it a surprise that they went that route anyways, even though we kind of expected it?
Well, it turned out to be, somewhat of an eventful practice day, because I came into it not really knowing, like, will they actually make a decision on these goalies? Or I did get the sense that if they were going to, once I saw all 23 players out there on the ice, the same 23, I thought, okay, the safe thing here is to send Osland down. Like, if somebody was going on waivers, they're probably not on the ice for practice at what would have been 2:30 Eastern, 12:30 local time. Probably not how you're going about it, but not surprised in the sense that it was the one that kicks the can down the road, right? It's the decision that delays making a decision. And the delaying of decisions has been kind of a theme this season at various points. Is it the end of the world that Osland and Roseanne are back in Rochester? Probably not. Is the best version of the Sabres one that has those 2 on it right now? Maybe. Probably. The tricky part here, like you mentioned, is when you have Thompson and Norris playing on 2 different center lines, all of a sudden there's no spot for Osland to play center in the top 9. There would be a spot for him to play wing, though, and he hasn't been taking faceoffs very well. I would say probably the worst component of his game while he was up was his faceoff ability, and there would have been spot to find a way to make him a winger. But in terms of putting Dunn or Kozak on waivers, those are guys that have a pretty specific role in the bottom 6. And Kozak specifically, Lindy Ruff is really high on. He really likes, the way he plays the game and what he can bring defensively. He trusts him a lot. Dunn strikes me as almost, kind of like earlier in the year when the whole reason they have 3 goalies to begin with is because they couldn't trust Luukkonen to stay healthy. I think Dunn is that for Jordan Greenway, right? They don't really have the 100% version of Jordan Greenway yet, and they don't know, how long he can stay healthy. And so you have a guy that can fill that type of role in terms of willingness to fight, physicality. Now, Jordan Greenway is currently a top line player, playing next to Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck, which is a decision. But Lindy Ruff made it sound like that was matchup specific, with Calgary being a pretty heavy team, expecting a lot of dump and chase, trying to get the puck back down low, protecting the puck down low. But we'll see. Those guys do have experience playing together. They have to feel a little bit desperate, though, that they're reaching desperation point, I think, when you're 464 points percentage, 2-8-2 on the road, no regulation wins on the road. your season could get away from you on the rest of this road trip.
Yeah, it's do or die as far as I'm concerned. You have to win this game tonight if you're the Buffalo Sabres, and yeah, a regulation win would be nice, but any win that gets you 2 points, even if it's a shootout, doesn't matter. It is a must win for the Buffalo Sabres tonight, as far as I'm concerned, because this road trip is critically important. You already got off to a piss poor start to it, and you can still salvage it, but it starts with a W tonight.
And Edmonton is playing better, so that
Mhm.
game on the second half of a back-to-back tomorrow night is not going to be a fun one. And the Flames are playing better. Dustin Wolf has stopped 55 of the last 56 shots he's faced. He's coming off a shutout on Saturday night, and he'll play again tonight. Flames wearing their really sharp black jerseys with the horse on it. Some of my favorites. I don't know if that's the most popular jersey in the league, but I love it. So this is people don't seem to like it, but I really like it. I think their whole setup, all three of their jerseys are great. But yeah, they need this one because it doesn't get any easier. I know the Canucks aren't, playing great right now, but the Oilers are turning things around. And if you want to get, at least 6 to 8 points on this road trip, this is one you need to have.
Well, we had talked about going into the road trip, the Sabres had won 4 of their previous 6, and that was the expectation, was to take 4 of 6 on the road trip. Lost the first 2, got to win the next 4. That's just how it goes as far as my expectations are for the game tonight. When we were together last time, we talked about the scenarios with, a couple things like, how do we get Josh Dunn more minutes if we're running the Buffalo Sabres? And that's how we got to the whole Thompson Norris split them up. And that's how you can maybe get Doan on that, in that top 6 firmly. Well, it's happening tonight. We could talk about Greenway all we want. I don't love it, but I actually get the thought of putting him up there against a heavy team. I kind of understand it. Probably want to change that up though by the time you get to Edmonton, but we'll see how it goes tonight with Greenway up top with Thompson and Tuck. But that whole Norris between Benson and Doan line, I like the look of that. And you had talked to Norris today. Did he have anything to say about playing with those guys? Because, I mean, he's still pretty fresh in the lineup. He's played a little bit with Benson. I don't think he's ever played with Doan. But that could work really well with those wingers, the way they work, the work rate with those two. Could be something to watch.
Josh Norris likes playing with Benson. He's played with him back to the preseason where, he's got that dog on a bone mentality on the forecheck, winning the puck back. And Josh Doan has some of those similar traits to his game. He's not a one-to-one comparison, but we've talked about those two as arguably the 2 best forecheckers on the Buffalo Sabres, at least as far as guys that profile as top 6 type of wingers. When we were sketching this out last week, we were talking maybe splitting those 2 up, gives you 1 on each line. But the idea of having both, I'm curious to see how they work together, because that is a high IQ line, I would say. Guys that make smart plays, guys that, play the game the right way away from the puck. And, Norris has had a few, off moments, I would say, defensively on this road trip, but still we know that he is a smart player in his own end, a guy that's not going to make a ton of mistakes there. So I'm curious to see how that line looks, especially because Tage, Thompson, and Alex Tuck have played really well together in the past. I don't know how I feel about Jordan Greenway being the guy that's skating with them. A lot of size there. I think for this specific matchup, it can work. But to your point, maybe against Edmonton, that's not the best line to go with. But we'll see. If they feel like Jordan Greenway is getting back closer to, the best version of himself, the 100% version of Jordan Greenway. But, still talking about a player with 3 points in 14 games this season, coming off not 1, but 2 hernia surgeries, who wasn't necessarily the quickest player to begin with. So putting him on the top line is rolling the dice a little bit. Less risky tonight than it will be tomorrow night in Edmonton, though.
Yeah, curious to see how it goes. I mean, it's going to have to be a different configuration when they get to Edmonton, unless that line just comes out tonight and combines for 8 points, between the 3 of them, something like that. But I'll believe that when I see it. So I don't know. I mean, I want to see effort from the team. I want to see leadership from the top guys. The game within the game. I want that to be played correctly tonight for the Sabres. But let's just do some what ifs here. Let's just kind of jump right in. Well, we can go there. We can talk about goaltending again real quick, but let's just do the what ifs, I guess. Like, what happens if they don't win tonight? We have a fan base here. Let's just kind of go there because I don't want to talk about goalies again. I'm already kind of thinking about the what if, of this group. If they can't get a win tonight, and then they're really, they just sink a little bit lower in the standings. Can't get any lower than where they're at in the East, but the climb gets much more difficult. And you go into Edmonton, that's not like necessarily the opponent that you probably want to play. At least, there's some pretty lethal scorers on the top two lines right now for the Oilers. I mean, where are you at with this team in terms of a shakeup? I mean, because something's got to break here if they can't win tonight. That's why I'm calling it a must win. Like, it's critically important that the team wins tonight.
I mean, the way it shapes out with the road trip, they're going to be away from home for a little while longer, which is important in the conversation of what you're talking about because Terry Pagula is not out here. So as far as any major shakeups, I don't know if I see that happening regardless of what happens in Calgary or Edmonton or Vancouver or anywhere. I have not seen Jarmo Kekalainen here in Calgary. Typically, as I've mentioned, he's been around the team quite a bit. Kevin Adams is out here. But, I think that is saving them in some ways from any sort of major imminent shakeup. I could be wrong. It could happen from thousands of miles away, but not necessarily Terry Pagula's MO with these sorts of things. But to your point, you start the road trip 0-2. The temperature of the fan base, I would say, was rising before they left.
Mm-hmm.
They had that loss to the Devils where the arena was loudly chanting for Kevin Adams to be fired. There were people chanting for Pagula to sell the team. They go and they win on the road the next night, come back home, have a pretty convincing 5-1 win over the Winnipeg Jets to kind of lower the temperature a little bit. But they've reached this point where it does not take a lot to set off the fan base, and rightfully so. I mean, they had a sold-out crowd for that Devils game, a crowd that was ready to run through a wall for the team because Tage Thompson starts the game with a fight, and they had a few really strong forechecks, and the crowd was really into the game. And then when it turns in a game where they didn't play awful, they lost 5-0, but they were controlling the game for long stretches. The energy in the crowd shifts suddenly and severely. And I don't know how long that is viable it's not fair to the players. And I say that not as saying the fans shouldn't be doing it. I'm saying the whole situation isn't entirely fair to the players. The fans are more than justified in chanting what they're chanting and doing what they're doing. Their energy is frankly admirable this long into a drought, that they still have the energy and the passion to care that much. But it's also creating, it creates a different energy and distraction, I think, for a team that has not dealt with distractions well anyways, right? It's sort of this thing hanging over the players. It's like a couple goals go in, people are going to be chanting for your GM to be fired. Like and not that they're necessarily taking that personally the same way they did when it was Don Granato under fire, but it's just this thing this cloud hanging over things, right? And when you talk about leadership and the need for leadership from the top down, like this is what we discussed a few weeks ago, like the direction, something to believe in, some conviction, some vision of where they're going, what they're supposed to be. I mean, Kevin Adams is in the final year of his contract. Lindy Ruff is in the final year of his contract. Alex Tuck is in the final year of his contract, and, no progress that we know about on an extension. Zach Benson, Josh Doan are restricted free agents at the end of the year. Nothing has been done with those contracts, that doesn't feel like the most conducive energy to ending this playoff drought. Ending a playoff drought is a hard thing to do. Like there's a lot of things working against you when you're trying to do that. Pressure, psychological challenges of trying to be the team that does that. This environment doesn't really set them up to do it. And so, to your question of what happens if they lose tonight, probably nothing. What happens if they lose tomorrow? Probably nothing. But what happens if they go, 1-5 on this road trip, or 0-6 on this road trip, or even 2-4, and they come back home, and in that first home game back, they fall down 2-0? That's the question that I wonder about, because the energy in there is not going to change if they go 3-3 or 4. I mean, even if they come home 3-3, 4-2 on this trip, maybe 4-2 would have people believing again. But, because that would be 4 straight wins. It would be the first time they've had even 3 straight wins. But you come home with only 2 wins or even 3, and I think people are going to be quick to turn again. And how long can you deal with that as a business, as a team? Like, it just doesn't seem to me viable.
Yeah, maybe it's not all about tonight. Maybe I was clumsy with how I teed it up, but I do think that tonight's important. I can't say it enough. You wrote after the Winnipeg game some thoughts. Basically, they're exactly where they are a year removed in the standings, right? Well, but in terms of their record, where they were a year ago. Was it a year to the day?
So
Palm Trees?
Palm Trees was Saturday, was the 1-year anniversary. So they woke up.
Yeah.
They were 26 games into the season on that date last year. But so when I looked where they were 28 games into the season, it was the exact same record, the exact same thing. And the year before, they were 1 point worse than that through the same amount of games. So it's like this is who they are, right? Injuries, whatever else aside, like this is it. This is who they are. This is where they deserve to be. This is the bed that they've made. And there's a lot of teams dealing with injuries. In fact, right now, the Sabres are probably healthier than a lot of teams around the league, given who they've gotten back. And I know Kulik is an important player. Kesselring's an important player. But in the grand scheme of things, you look at who some other teams are missing, what they've dealt with. Yeah, they're right back in the same spot that they were last year when public perception of Adams went from bad to worse with that press conference. And so at some point, you would think something's got to give, but that's a big ask sometimes around here.
Yeah, I mean, we already fired Kevin Adams once on this show this year. A few weeks ago, episode, and if you missed it, I think we called it the Time Has Come, I think was the name of that episode of the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show. And again, this season, critically important that they make the playoffs. No shit, right? You haven't gotten any better than where you were at a year ago. You could make a move right now. The reason that it's worth reprising that whole move at the top conversation, if they can't win tonight, they could still spark the team by doing it. Breathe some life into the players, a sign of hope, something that ownership cares. And there's time. Look at the standings. We talked about it at the top. They could make a move. This year in the Eastern Conference, there's still time. Honestly, with this group that I know is so ping-pongy with how they play, and there's no rhyme or reason to when they show up and when they don't, I'll be ready to talk about it. I think more fervently. Is that the right word? If they don't win tonight, and keep my foot on the gas for that conversation to happen with Terry Pegula and Kevin Adams, because you have a guy right there, Jarmo Kekalainen, to do something. Because by the way, if you can make a change, you hope that you spark the team and they can go on a run. You hope. But it's more about the job that has to happen with the general manager next season. $104 million salary cap. I was looking at the numbers today. They have $74,765,000 committed to 17 players next year. You have Jeff Skinner, $6.44444 million on the cap next year from his buyout. All of a sudden, you're at almost 81 million, over 81 million committed. And you have to, whoever comes in has to re-sign Tuck. You have to do business with Malenstein. Dunn,
Yep.
you have to do business with him, what you want to do. You have RFAs, Doan, Benson, Rosane. You got 3 goalies. If they keep losing games and they slide, it's gonna get louder for me
And
that
it
something needs
should.
to happen.
There's so many facets of it that make it a prudent and ongoing conversation, because things like this happen mid-season in this league a lot, especially with coaches, but it happens with general managers as well, for the reason that you mentioned. It's not like in the NFL where you see a lot more of the GM business handled at the end of the season, although Miami did make a change midseason. And actually, to your point, that definitely seemed to spark the group.
Mhm.
Different sport and all that, but it's, similar situation. But in the NFL, so much of your business happens in the offseason. Your draft, your free agency, your trades. And in season, there's a job to do. There's a deadline. There's some tinkering. There's some practice squad signings and different things that need to be done. But hockey, especially the way everything is going now, like free agency is sort of disappearing in a way, in the way that we've come to know it, right? A lot of the top players are signing. There's more cap space to go around, so it's easier for teams to retain talent. You reshape your roster year round. It's a 12-month job, and at any point can be the right time to make a move like this, because you're signing contracts all the time. You're making trades at any point, and certainly the deadline is going to be a big turning point for this team one way or the other in terms of Tuck and different things that could go on. I mean, look at one of the guys they consider their most important acquisitions this year is Josh Norris, and he was acquired at the deadline last year. So that's why it's an ongoing and a pressure point, because the longer you wait, the more opportunity is being wasted, whether it's opportunity to make deals, opportunity to sign players. The longer you wait, the tougher that gets. The closer Alex Tuck gets to unrestricted free agency, how does he feel about all this? I mean, it's December now. They're in last place again. They're getting closer to the deadline. Would a different GM change the urgency for him to put pen to paper? I don't know, but it couldn't hurt, right? I mean, it's hard to imagine there's a ton of confidence in that room in Kevin Adams. Now, the players have a ton of responsibility for what's happened this year as well, but the whole puzzle and how it fits together, like it all plays a role, and the organizational leadership matters. And right now, I think everybody knows the direction that they should go, except for the one guy whose decision it is at the top. He's it's almost unanimous. It's hard to imagine. I'm like looking around sports, other situations like this where I can't imagine there's very many fans still believing in what Kevin Adams is building, or his capability to do the job, but the one guy who matters is keeping him in the spot.
Yeah, so it's just I'm kind of running out of ways to like reasons, like going back in retrospect, not getting Tuck done before training camp at the price that you probably reasonably could have gotten him at was a fireable offense among all the fireable offenses. So
I do believe
I'm
there was a
getting that
deal to be
trail.
had at. I do believe that
Me
they could
too.
have gotten it done. And like
Me
I don't have like really solid information there, but I do believe Tuck was earnest in his willingness to sign. Where he's at now, I don't know, because I think he's really put a wall up, and especially once the season started, he's been an expert at deflecting those questions, and has a real good poker face with the whole thing. But I believe that they could have gotten something done before the season at the right number, and that number probably wouldn't have been insane. It wouldn't have been certainly would have been higher than Kempe, I don't think. And the market shifted and the team got off to a really slow start, and now the dynamic has changed completely. And so whatever game you were playing before the season, it didn't work. And now you may be in a position where you don't end up with the player. And I know some people are going to point to the way Tuck has played lately and say, you don't want the player, you don't need the player, good riddance or whatever. But it doesn't change the fact that the market dynamics, I think they misplayed them. And would you be getting a different Alex Tuck if he had put pen to paper before the season? Would you be getting a different team? Injuries still would have happened. They still would have had their struggles, but Tage Thompson was not shy before the season about saying how good it would be for morale to get Tuck under contract. Well, if that's true, then what does that say of the inverse? What did it do for morale to not get Tuck under contract? And what does it do to continue to not have him under contract and have him, high up on these trade boards? And, hockey's a small world, right? It's a really small world. And in terms of like the media coverage and everything else, like the stuff cuts through, even to the guys who say they block it all out. It cuts through because it's just such a small, it's not like the NFL where there's so much noise that it's easy for guys in some cases to miss some stuff and it falls through the cracks. Or this guy over here is saying Tuck could get traded. It's like when one of the handful of big insiders, it cuts through on social media and everywhere else. Like to pretend the situation is not some sort of distraction when one of your best players isn't under contract and could end up traded at some point.
Yeah.
I think you could draw a direct line to that, to how the team has performed at times, the consistency, how Tuck has probably performed. Now what? He's got 24 points, I think, in 28 games. Point production's been pretty solid. And even overall, his underlying metrics are solid, but there's been some moments, against Philly, he tries to clear the puck on the PK and fails, and it ends up in the back of the net. He had the turnover on Friday night against Winnipeg that really changed that game, and he owned it. But there's these moments that are cropping up, little lapses of focus or attention to detail. So, yeah, I think it's a good point by you to circle back on that, because the number would have been lower, and I think it would have been the right thing to do.
They probably could have saved at least $1 million on the cap, maybe 1.5, definitely 1.25. I think they could have saved if you're using Kempe as the baseline. And it looks like they're going to need it. Looks like they're going to need that space. If they sign Tuck, they're going to need it. And someone's going to have to go. And you're the one that always brings it up on the show that you're not convinced that, is Kevin the guy that you want deciding who stays and who goes and making that deal that it looks like it's going to need to be made. You could put, you could have Oslin, Rosane. Rosane will be on a second contract, but he's not going to break the bank. You could have Oslin, Hellenius, one or both of those guys up on entry-level contracts next year. Going to be bringing down your average age when you do that. Those numbers that I shared where they have 74.7 committed, that includes the third goalie. Ryan Johnson could basically be swapped out for Colton Ellis' salary. But someone's going to have to go. Byram? Power? Quinn?
Greenway,
Luukkonen, right?
Those are big numbers. 4.75 and for Luukkonen and 4.5 for Greenway. I believe it's what? Do they have 22 million-ish when you count for Skinner?
Yeah, when you count for Skinner, it's going to be a little over 22. I think I didn't do the exact math. I just kind of jotted it down real quick.
So let's say Tuck is 10 conservatively.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say he's 10, then you have 12 million for
Benson and Doan.
Benson and Doan right there. That's not including Mallenstein and, other business that they need to handle. So, yeah, some reshaping of the roster has to happen. And if Tuck leaves, that opens up a big chunk of change. But
by the way, they don't want to spend $104 million if that ends up being the cap. They don't want to spend to the cap. Let's just say it.
Well, they're at the cap now, but they're at the cap right. With the buyout, right? And because of having to have extra players on the roster because of all these injuries.
But
Skinner they won't be spending. Yeah, they won't be spending the cap regardless in terms of cash. They'll be at 98 or whatever. That's the
Skinner's number on the cap gives them an excuse to not spend.
Right. They'll be at
Yeah.
98 million in actual
Yeah.
spending, even if they're right up against the ceiling, which also they probably won't be. Like they probably won't. They'll find a way to move some money out and try to create a little extra room there. But, the cap going up is great for the league. It's great for the players. It's great, but it's not great for the Sabres because their
Yeah.
revenue isn't going up with it, right?
No, they're have not.
It's the cap going up is a sign of the health of the NHL. It's not a sign of the health of the Buffalo Sabres. So their financial picture has not changed, which is all the more reason to give the fan base a jolt, right? You said show the players that you care. Show the fans that you care. Show the fans that you're taking this seriously, that your main objective is still to win and not whatever else has been the objective since 2020, at various points. Winning seems like it would be a nice to have, but not an essential the way they're operating. And that makes it a tough day-to-day situation, I feel like, for the players. And I get a lot of the frustration gets taken out on the players, and I understand it, right? Whether it's Owen Power has really stalled out this year, right? I mean, he's pointless in 11 games. Some would say he's been pointless a lot longer in his own.
That's the longest streak of his career. Pointless. I stepped on a really good point you were about to make. Restart that one.
But he has not progressed the way you want a number one overall pick who makes $8.3 million a year to progress. He's not, he's always had his struggles in his own end, and now he hasn't put points on the board. And, he may lose his power play time as a result of it. And Lindy Ruff, in his pointed criticism of Power, I think brought up something that bothers a lot of people about Power in the defensive zone, ironically. He said, in terms of his offense, that he's like 80% there, but he's getting outskated or out competed for that last 20%. And, needs to be heavier, needs to, all that. That's the same thing in the defensive zone. He's like in the right places most of the time. He's just not finishing plays. And so, that's one example of where frustration gets pointed. Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, these moments they have, in the last few games that certainly haven't helped the team. Bo Byram has had some and drawn plenty of criticism. People are up in arms about Greenway being on the top line. Like, I get all of these things individually and the frustration, but also it would be a lot easier, I think, for fans to be level-headed and to not ride the wave so much if they believed in the overall direction of the team. If they believed that there was some vision and something happening, it'd be easier to go through the ups and downs. But it all is, in the eyes of a lot of fans, a reflection of Kevin Adams, right? This is his team, his vision, what he built. And so, the players bear the brunt of a lot of that frustration, except when they're at home and it's Kevin Adams is getting it pretty directly from the fans.
I think I'm feeling frustrated because I'm sitting here when I'm usually on the couch digesting my dinner because I'm so spoiled with our 6 a.m. pre-recorded shows.
4 a.m. would have been an early wake-up call, although I was like, I'm still not fully adjusted to the time zone, so I almost could have been awake this morning. But
so let's go back to another one of our favorite topics on this show. We know UPL's going tonight. It's getting the net. I understand Tristan Jarry's having a bounce back year. I think Elliot Friedman mentioned on his podcast that came out this morning that there's maybe a connection being made with Jarry and the Oilers. I don't know if you saw that. You think the Sabres are having discussions? Like, how do they get in on that conversation?
They have to be. I mean, they have to be, right? If they're not, then somebody's not doing their job. If they're not having conversations about all three of these goalies to gauge the market and figure out what the right move is, then they're being negligent. Somebody asked here, Steve Noble, do you think they've been showcasing UPL lately because they're working on trading him? Honestly, I wish I could tell you what they're doing with the goalies because I don't really know.
I think they're trying to get him right.
And in theory, I think that could be one reason, but I think more in line with what you're saying, they're, they'd rather have him be the guy if all else was equal, because moving that contract is going to be difficult the way he has played over the last season and a half now. I mean, he's not off to the greatest start this season, didn't have a good year last year. Theoretically, Alex Lyon would be easier to move, but is there a major market for a guy that a team might not view as a legit starter? I don't know. I mean, he also hasn't played a lot lately. Very strange situation in my eyes there, because he has, he came out of the gate and played great in the first like 10 to 12 games or so, started to cool off, probably wore down a little bit. Then he went, 15 days between starts, and he's now 9 or 10 days into this stretch between starts. So what bothers me about that is that this was a guy that was giving you the best chance to win, but also kind of having a little bit of leadership to him in the room. And I feel like you suck the life out of that when you keep a guy out of the net. Like, it's hard enough for a goalie to be a leader, vocally in a lot of ways, because it's like you're playing, you're part of the team, but you're not, when it's like, it can come off as blaming, right? Unless you're doing it the exact right way. Like, all right, boys, we need to get going. We need to be harder on the forecheck. We need to win puck battles. You're not doing all those things, right? So it can come off as, as deflecting and blaming. But I think he had a good way about him that was resonating, and they don't have a lot of veterans. But you think about how hard it is for a goalie to be a leader in general. Think about how hard it would be for Alex Lyon to be a leader now. Like, all he can do is be a good teammate and try to support the other goalies and support other guys around the room and kind of be a positive influence. But it's like, that's the part that frustrates me about that, is they had a little something with this guy. And because of the situation, now he's searching for his game, and also, has lost some of that spark, I feel like, that he had earlier in the year. And why? Like, why? What did he do?
Something's mysterious. I mean, well, he said that injuries aren't an excuse. There's kind of an interesting timing. Like, when he said that to you guys in the media, he's like, wasn't it Lyon? He was
Lyon
saying
did
to the
make
effect
a
that
point about injuries at some point, but he's never missed practice.
him stopping playing, though, and getting starts does kind of align with that. That's when the drop in his number of starts. And listen, I'm not saying that's it. It's just interesting, because it's like, what else? We don't know. It's a mystery.
Well, and Lindy Ruff
Throw
mentioned
every theory out there.
he was working on something in his game. I don't know exactly what he was working on. And, the other
He's
piece
30,
of this,
what? He's 32 or something?
32,
Like,
I believe. And
what the hell is he working on?
well, the other thing too is it's part of why the 3 goalie thing is funky in general, but working on something in practice is really not like the best environment for a goalie
They
necessarily.
don't
Like,
practice a lot anyways.
they don't practice a lot. And if you watch a practice, a goalie is stopping like 60% of the shots that come his way on a good day, because it's not as if, it's all these odd man rushes and free runs for these guys. Like, the drills aren't really designed always to get, the best day, the best work for the goalie. You're definitely not getting great work when you're sharing a net. And so you're staying after and you're working on little things. And it's not to diminish the work that goes into fine tuning little things in your game, but so much of it goes out the window when you're playing in a game. The speed, the reads, the feel, and all of that can only be replicated in a game. And he hasn't had a chance to get any sort of rhythm on that. So, the idea that he's working on something or whatever seems a little, or was working on something. I don't know if he's done working on it, but like, Mike Bale's shooting on him before practice is not going to help him when he's up against, Connor McDavid if he gets thrown in the net tomorrow night, right? Like, it's just not, I don't know, it's not a good situation, this whole 3 goalie thing. And it costs you, in this case, a chance to have Osland or Roseanne up. And a prominent role because it cost you having a seventh defenseman. I mean, they got away with it, but if somebody got sick in Winnipeg on Friday afternoon, they would have been rolling with 5 defensemen because they didn't bring one up there. Going down to Philly, I was like, okay, you can get somebody day of, but like Winnipeg, not easy to get out there from Rochester. And so they're taking, they took that gamble because of this 3 goalie situation.
It just makes so much sense to waive Colton Ellis. I know there's a lot of fans that don't think that's the smart move. I do. What do you have to lose? I mean, I don't know. Like, when I look at the goalies, I'm not interested in trading Alex Lyon. Even if a team
I'm not.
because of I just think he could be a steady guy to just have there in the goalie room.
A good number next year.
Good number. You got him next year.
Good teammate. Really, like I said, has some leadership to him. And I think in the right rhythm, let's say he's just the backup, right? He's just a 25-30 start backup next year.
He's proved that that's something that he likes
and that he's good at, and that it would be a lot easier than going 15 days between games, right? So he'd be fine in that role. But the problem that they have right now is who's taking the other 50 starts if Lyon's only getting 30, right?
Yeah.
They have Devin Levi in this whole picture as well. So it's messy, and they're seemingly not in a rush to make a decision. And part of the problem, most likely, is that Luukkonen's number is not real palatable for teams to take, especially considering he's got a few years left on the term. It's too much for a goalie that hasn't performed consistently enough.
I could do a Lyon Ellis tandem if they were able to move Luukkonen, and it solves a lot of those problems for whoever the GM is of this team trying to make that cap puzzle work for 2026-27. I don't know. We'll see how it goes tonight.
I also don't buy this idea that, like, some people have asked me about, like, is Luukkonen getting more time because Team Finland needs to get a look at him? Like,
they're not doing anything for Finland. It's not.
No, and Jarmo Kekalainen is right here. If they need intel on Luukkonen, they've got it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else on Lindy Ruff's mind other than which guy is going to give him the best chance to win that night. And the problem is that I don't think Lindy Ruff knows when he wakes up in the morning on the day of a game who that guy is, because how could he? On any given night, one of these guys is their best chance to win and isn't. They've all 3 of them been all over the board. They all rank 50th or worst in goal save above expected on Money Puck's model. Like, in theory, none of them really give them that good of a chance to win. So it's like, especially in this, situation, none of them are in rhythm and playing well. So it's like, I don't, these ideas of like, oh, they're showcasing this guy or they're showcasing that. The only thing I can't really explain is the Lion thing. I don't really know, but at the same time, it's like, I do think, they think the high end of Luukkonen is probably their best chance, and they're trying to get that out of him. We'll see if he's been much better at home than he has been on the road. He's really struggled on the road, but the whole team has. So hard to single out Luukkonen in that regard.
Well, I love 3 goalies. I don't know. I sent a tweet to someone last night. I was answering. They're like, when are they going to do something with these 3 goalies? I was like, maybe they're waiting for the rule to change and they could put 2 out there in the net at the same time. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Honestly, watch them send Metsa down and they call up Levi, and then they have 4.
They did have 4 a few years ago. Remember that?
I remember that.
They had Luukkonen, Craig Anderson, Eric Comrie, and Devin Levi. So
Jesus, okay. I'm burned out on the goalie. So it just gives me a headache. Just figure it out, guys. Win a game. That's all I really care about. I'd like to see the team win a game and see if they can make something of it. Getting tired talking about a last place team, honestly. I think I have a case of the Mondays. I'm just salty. I am salty today. Hey, hit the like button. Hit the like button. That'll get me unsalty. 50 minutes in, Matthew. I wasn't kidding about that like button. People really hit that like button. 50 minutes in. Have you been watching the chat? We haven't done a live show in a while. Is there anything that you want to address in the chat? Any questions?
I've had it out of the corner of my eye.
I haven't
Turkish
really.
Rebel here says of the 3 goalie situation, you might say it's a challenge for Lindy, which I think might be in reference to the challenge situation on Wednesday night against Philadelphia, which we have not done a show since. Or did we do a show?
We did the Philly. Yeah, we did. That was the Benson offside. We talked a little bit about that.
Oh, that's
yeah.
right. We went on
And he won
on
a challenge
Thursday
of
or
the other
Friday.
night, didn't he?
He did. The
So he's what,
challenges are
1 for 5 on the year now? Is that right? I
that's
think 1
pretty
for
good.
5.
Yeah, they got an offside one, right,
Yeah.
against the Jets. Scheifele
Yep.
was the one that they were successful on. Let's see what else we've got in the chat. I'm rusty as far as starring the chats.
Yeah, and this is real good for the audio listeners, by the way.
That's right. Yeah. Well, this is why
Real good.
out of rhythm.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, I'm seeing not a ton of question, a lot of great discussion as always. Man, the chat is busy. It's hard to keep up. In the early days, I felt like we could just
Well, our friend Michael in
Oh,
Orange
what
Goldsvik,
did you say?
Sweden, did say, he said, "I'm going to bed. It's late here in Sweden." But a question, what do you got here? Chris, get a haircut already? No,
Didn't you just get a haircut?
I did just get a haircut. Leave me alone, Soupy. Go to hell, Soupy. This is our friend Michael in Orange Goldsvik, northern Sweden. He said, "I'm going to bed. It's too late here in Sweden, but a question for the show. Why does Adams keep holding this team back? Sending down Osland is a clear indicator that he's not want the best team on the ice." Kind of talked a little bit about this, Michael. You'll listen to this in the morning when you wake up. It was a move that just made sense. It was a safe move. That's really all it is, and that's really all you can expect out of this general manager right now. He's kind of frozen again. I think he's that blinking light goes off when there's things that he needs to do and he just can't do them. This was the general manager that came into the season saying he learned from past experiences that he had to make a move quicker. A lot of those were driven by the standings, but having 3 goalies, and that was the more obvious move, obviously. Just wave Ellis. Just wave Ellis.
He might have even gotten through.
He might have, yeah. But anyways,
St. Louis probably would have taken him back, but
it's a good question. Here's the thing. I'm not making the business case to have kept Osland up here at the same time. Just saying it was the easy move, and that was the expected one that he was gonna make.
It's a good question by Papa Duke. Why drag Osland all the way to Calgary just to send him back to Rochester? Rochester had a game on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, he gets a practice day in Calgary. He doesn't play in that game on Saturday. Gets a day off in Calgary, gets, a little extra time with the boys, I guess. Delayed the decision. Maybe it was just indecision, right?
He had to go to the keg.
The keg. I went to the keg last night. The keg's not so bad. It was good steak. It was attached to my hotel, so it was convenient, which is really what matters.
Yeah.
But I guess you get them. Guys like being on the road. The young guys like being on the road, right? That's when a lot of guys say they really feel like they've arrived in the NHL, staying in the fancy hotels. And so I don't think it's a bad thing, for Oslander that he would have been pissed off to have to take a flight from Calgary instead of Winnipeg. But to me, it's just delaying the decision is probably why they did it, particularly because if you're sending him down, there's no real decision to make, you're not waiting with waivers. There's nothing strategic about it other than maybe he gets a little extra time on the road with the boys. Calgary's a nice city. It's a good place to spend a day.
Cost of doing business for being in the NHL for Noah Osland.
It could be worse. Neil asks, or not a question, but he says, "I'm getting more enjoyment watching our prospects playing for their various teams." And I've seen a few comments on our videos. Why don't you give us a 30-second rundown of what you're seeing? What's exciting you about the prospects? Because I know you've got your eye on those guys.
Yeah, Hellenius is really growing up in his second year in Rochester. Points in 9 of his last 10 games. He's definitely coming along. Definitely a boost with Rosane going back down there. Rosane has continued to just stay hungry in his return to the Amerks lineup. The USHL guys are having some good years. That's Aston Schultz, who actually scored a goal today for Team USA at the World Junior A Challenge. He gave them a 4-0 lead on Sweden. But Ryan Rusinski, who's going to be going to Ohio State next year, he's got 10 power play goals this year out of the 16 that he scored for Youngstown. leading scorer in the USHL. Melvin Novotny, who's a first-year player on the USHL this year, going to UMass next year. He's been lighting it up for Muskegon, and he's more of a complete player. It's good to see him scoring at the junior A level in the USHL with the Lumberjacks, but he's going to be a guy that's more of a speed forechecker, timely offense maybe as he works his way up through the next levels. But no, Brody Zemer has been crushing it. Probably going to be the captain for Team USA at the World Junior Championship. It's going to be in his backyard in the Twin Cities this year. He's a home stater there in Minnesota, but he's been excellent this year. He's got, I think 12 goals in 19 games. He had 12 all last year as a freshman in 38 games. So he's been excellent this year. Goaltenders are doing really well. You said 30 seconds. Is the timer running? Because I can go on all day about this. I can take us right to the fucking hour, honestly, if I keep going. Prokhorov has been excellent this year at the junior level. He had another win today for his team, Dynamo Shinnik. He had a brief call to the KHL. Pretty good for an 18-year-old kid. No, it's been a good year for the prospects. Murtka got in his first fight a week ago. Clumsy. His first fight in the Western League. He had a fight earlier this year in Rochester. But no, I could go on all day about these guys. And by the way, Stefan Sardarian, technically still a Sabres prospect. Technically. Okay. I'm sure they're apart. I'm sure there's a formal breakup coming because it just seems like he wanted to turn pro over the summer, didn't get an offer, went back to school. But he's been lighting it up this year. I think he's over an assist per game. 6 goals, 17 assists in 16 games this year. He's right up there in the top 10 amongst NCAA point getters this year for Michigan Tech. But he's a really interesting case study in perfect guy to play in the Coast League. Supremely skilled, but flawed. Doesn't put the work in, inconsistent. But that's a guy that you, in my opinion, take a chance on, especially after you let a playmaking centerman go over the summer in Viljami Mariala, who's having an excellent start to his AHL career in Bakersfield. Sardarian, I don't know what's going on there with the Sabres. I mean, they made a high pick with him.
Third rounder, right?
Third rounder. To me, that's a high pick. But he's lighting it up. What do you have to lose by giving him an entry level contract to see if you can develop him? They've signed a hell of a lot worse in the past 10 years. I don't know. Just something to
not much different than Kisakov, right? I mean, who kind of got buried in Rochester and was gone after a few years. You got to win on the margins, like we talk about, right? And when you're a draft and develop team, you can't let stuff slip through the cracks. And that feels like one that, who knows what he becomes. Like you said, there's some habits he needs to clean up, and his game's not perfect. But I remember going to watch him at UNH when he was still there, and same type of conversation with his coach at UNH was just like tons of skill. Got to get him to put the work in. Got to get him to commit to certain parts of the game. But his stick and the way he handles the puck has been kind of NHL level from the jump, and now some of the rest of it is coming with him. So it was a good rundown of the prospects for people that I know have been clamoring for it.
One last one. My favorite prospect stat this year, there's a couple, but Gavin McCarthy, number 1 defenseman, Boston University this year, at least on the number 1 pair. He's averaging over 25 minutes a night for the Terriers. That's a big number for a loaded program. Over 25 minutes a night for Kevin Adams' neighbor, Gavin McCarthy. But Sturbach's having a good year. There's a lot of good. That one won't, yeah. But there's that's a big number. You don't see a lot of defensemen playing over 25 minutes in college. I don't even think Sturbach climbed back up to 20 minutes yet. My dog is whining. I don't know if you can hear her. She's obviously feeling sick. We're going to have to end this soon. But no, that's a big number. 25 minutes, 27 seconds is what I have as time on ice per game for Gavin McCarthy. So noteworthy.
Not bad.
No.
A couple other quick ones here before we get out. Neil Kennington, but I'm gonna call him Nihilist Neil with this question. He says, what would everyone's reaction be if Pegula gave Adams a contract extension for Christmas? We've talked about this before, I believe, on the show, maybe offline, I don't know, about how you almost can't even announce it if you do give him a contract extension, which should be the sign that perhaps you shouldn't hand it out in the first place. But yeah, that would not go over well. You'd have to like almost announce it on Christmas morning when nobody's paying attention. And even then, I think people would peel away from their families to head down to the arena. And Matt asks, would Kevin do a better job if he only talked to Terry every other day instead of every single day? Maybe. It might be worth I get the feeling that maybe it's more of an every other day thing. I think maybe he says every day for effect. I almost can't imagine. What would they have to talk about every single day? Maybe they have a lot. I don't know. But the chat, it's been a while, but they're in mid-season form despite the long layoff.
Matt missed you guys. Me, no. I like the community that we've kind of cultivated, I guess, by having the live shows. I do miss it. I do. I miss the live chat. But I'll tell you what, they're better shows. They're nice and tight when we do them in the morning, 50 minutes in and out. People love them, the audio listener. So we got to kind of make both sides happy. We did this for
balancing act. It's good for our schedules too. It's good for, keeping a consistent cadence, right? Chris is a big busy boy at his fancy job during the day. And so, we got to squeeze it in before working hours. And at night, I'm usually at these games or trying to take a night off when I'm not at the game. So it's working well, but I like the opportunity to sprinkle these in as a special treat for our audience. Appreciate everybody who asked about them, wanted them back. It's we do the best to find the right balance, but priority is on getting more of these out, more shows. So that's why we do it in the morning.
We don't have at 6 a.m. a dog trying to get me out of this chair like I have right now. She is all over me. So I think that's a signal, Matthew Fairburn, for you to do your plugs.
Yeah, people can head to theathletic.com/sabres and find everything I'm writing. I'll be with the team on this trip for the next 3 games. I'll be flying from back home after the Vancouver game, but I'll have plenty coming on whatever the hell happens with these guys over the next 4 or 5 days. And I'm sure we'll talk to you guys. We've got loose plans to do another one of these while I'm still on the road. So stay tuned for that. Maybe it'll even
300 likes, and I'll commit to another live one next episode. 300.
I like it.
To another live one, and I'll bitch less about it too than I'm doing tonight. That is a promise. 300 likes, we'll go live, and I'll bitch less. Sounds pretty good to me. You heard them, folks. Go to theathletic.com/sabres. That's where you can find all of Matthew Fairburn's work, including, I'm sure, something tomorrow morning following whatever carnage Sabres get to tonight in their matchup with the Flames. For the production crew, who I think secretly likes the 6 a.m. shows also better than this right now. But that's again, hey, listen, they just do what we tell them.
Maybe we should ask the chat how many of these people would be up at 6 a.m. if we were live. It's a good question.
Go live at 6 a.m.?
Live at 6 a.m.
Jeez, psychos. I mean, I know we're all a little demented.
Right. Set the alarms
that we talk about this team, but golly, that would be something. Nobody is up at 6 a.m. You psychos, says Clinton. STFU Clinton. Yeah, I think I know what that means, Clinton. All right, for the production crew, I'm Chris Baker. Thanks everyone for hopping in here on this pop-up event, the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll see you again next time.